Boa tarde a todas e todos. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are very happy to have right here an X-Prize Rainforest panel, which is international cooperation for the fight against biodiversity loss. I will pass to Mr. Peter Hollihan, who will be the moderator of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Boa tarde, buenas tardes. It's a pleasure to have you all here, and it's a pleasure for me to be joined by such an esteemed group of panelists to really discuss the importance of combating biodiversity loss, and then more importantly for everyone here, I think, to hear from the leaders here on this panel. So I'll be providing a little bit of background on our X-Prize Rainforest work, but to start, I want to introduce who we have seated here with me. From the far end, we have Minister Kering, the Minister of Environment, Natural Resources Conservation and Tourism from Botswana. In the middle, we have Minister Jean Diarc Mujawamamira from Rwanda, the Minister of Environment. And to my side, we have Eduardo Tavera, Secretary of Environment for the state of Amazonas in Brazil. So welcome to all of our panelists. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're here to really talk about solutions. Biodiversity loss has been declared as, one of the greatest crises of our time, and is no longer on the sidelines of climate. It's very much entwined in how we must drive solutions and work together. At X-Prize, we run global prize incentivized competitions to foster and accelerate innovative solutions. But what I find is through that competition, it fosters collaboration. And I think everybody sitting up here is really a phenomenal leader in that sense of collaboration. We have representatives from different governments, but all of this work requires collaboration across different sectors, whether it's governments, academia, nonprofits, indigenous communities, and how can we actually learn from one another. We were just discussing before the panel how important that sharing and collaboration truly is. And so I'll ask a few questions about that. But in 2019, across all of the work that X-Prize does, working to drive solutions to grand challenges in the world, we are really focused on a more equitable and abundant future for all of humanity, for all life on Earth, life on land, life below water. And Alana Foundation from Brazil came to X-Prize to foster a collaboration and sponsor a prize that could really focus on accelerating our understanding of biodiversity in a way that is much faster and near real time, and go beyond just species lists, but produce ecological insights in near real time to inform management, policy making, and action. And again, I think a lot of what we'll talk about today is about action. Over these past couple of years, X-Prize Rainforest recruited 300 teams from 70 countries that are all very interdisciplinary, both in terms of their scope of work, their team composition, and the way in which they're integrating various forms of technology, knowledge, and wisdom to co-create and co-design solutions that are meaningful and practical on the ground. Of those 300 teams from 70 countries, our judging panel would continually select the most promising teams to move forward. And we had 13 teams that competed in Southeast Asia and Singapore earlier this year to trial their technologies. And actually, in the end of July, with Minister, we announced the 6 finalists in Rwanda at the International Congress for Conservation Biology that will be proceeding to the finals in Brazil in the state of Amazonas in July. And so throughout the month of August, we kind of moved from one phase of the competition to the next, moving towards our finals, but also we're looking beyond that, the legacy of this work and having solutions adopted and implemented across different countries, across different states, national parks, with indigenous communities around the world. And we signed a partnership, an MOU with the federal government of Brazil as well as the state of Amazonas to host these finals in July of next year. And so this is kind of a little bit of setting the stage of where we're at, and following the finals in Brazil, we'll also be working to scale these solutions around the world. And we've been establishing a number of different partnerships, as I mentioned, but especially across Africa, across Asia, and throughout Central and South America outside of the Brazilian Amazon as well. So we're certainly looking to foster collaboration in this sense. And I do want to start with Minister Mujawamaria for Rwanda speaking to your leadership to kick things off, really following the Global Biodiversity Framework a year ago in December. Under your leadership and the country of Rwanda, you really focused on moving from agreement to action and building back biodiversity. And I'd love to start with you to kind of speak on what that journey has been. A lot of times in different events, we get frustrated with discussions and kind of dwelling on what's being done, and you've certainly been leading in that sense with Rwanda. So I'd love for you to start and share a little bit of what you've been up to in your busy 2023.
Thank you very much, Peter, our moderator, dear panelists, dear participants, good afternoon. Rwanda has understood that the planet is facing interdependent crises, and we have to put our effort in as if we were in emergency state. Indeed, the loss of biodiversity is a crisis, and everyone should understand that and collaborate. That is what Rwanda is doing in collaborating, first of all, with the local community for the protection of biodiversity, and of course, involving the people. Because people should and have to understand that they have to live in harmony with nature, in harmony with biodiversity. Most of the time, we forget that we are part of the biodiversity. Most of the time, the human being thinks that he or she is out of biodiversity. We are part of biodiversity. That's why we have to protect the biodiversity if we want to protect ourselves. And Rwanda has understood that long ago when we decided to protect, for example, our gorillas, the volcano park. Normally, gorillas were on the list of endangered species. Now Rwanda, we are coming out of that state. Our gorillas are no longer among the endangered species, because every year we name 12 newborn babies of gorillas. Every year we have, for the last 10 years, we are naming every year 12 newborn babies of gorillas. And of course, the collaboration knows no boundaries, as well as loss of biodiversity. Such biodiversity loss should be really a global crisis that needs a global collaboration. And if we don't take measures to halt and reverse the degradation of nature in the short run, significant damage to social, economic, and political resilience is to be expected, jeopardizing achievements of SDGs. And science is showing us that soon we will have more immigrants of biodiversity loss, of climate crisis than we have ever had before. So I take this opportunity to thank X Prizes for organizing this session and all the partners and stakeholders. For example, X Prize Rainforest serves as a catalyst for innovation and platform to showcase. And I take this opportunity to call upon, again, all partners to collaborate. Now today itself, one of our country in East Africa had lost 100 people due to floods. That is Tanzania. The minister has to fly back due to floods. I was telling my friend Peter that somewhere, someone has seen it coming on his or her screen. But if we have shared information, if we have told Tanzanian authority that there is a crisis coming, we could have saved lives. But we were created to love people and to use technology. Now, we have shifted our love to technology and use people. If we could use technology and save lives, I was telling Peter, if someone has seen it, even if he or she wants money from that image of crisis that is coming to Tanzania, I would rather tell Tanzanian authority, okay, there is a threat coming, give me money and save lives. But everything now we have put into monetary negotiation. So I thank X Prize that your partnership with Rwanda, with the world, is really based on humanity, on sharing research outcomes. And Rwanda, as committed participant, commends your initiatives of X Prize, and we will keep collaborating, because we are not reinventing the wheel. Somewhere, someone has created a technology that will help people. What we have to do is just to upgrade that system or that technology. And we do that. For example, we want to use drones for assessment and management of our biodiversity. We are now working with Rwanda Investigation Bureau for investigating biodiversity crimes. The Ministry of Environment has bought drones to Rwanda Investigation Bureau to be able to manage and to protect our biodiversity. If institutions can work together, why can't countries work together and collaborate? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that point of collaboration is something that we'll definitely dive into further, because as we were discussing earlier, oftentimes these solutions are somewhere, but they're not everywhere accessible to everyone. So I also want to build on something you mentioned about the importance of gorillas, because on your other side, Minister Kering, you're not only the Minister of Environment, but also of Natural Resources, Conservation, and Tourism. And that title, that name of your ministry also speaks to the interplay and the interconnectedness of how biodiversity and tourism are so interconnected. So could you speak a little bit to that, please?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity, and good afternoon. The Botswana conservation and biodiversity preservation story spans over 4 decades, actually over 5 decades. When we started our rural development, national development, programming after independence, we focused on what we had at that time, because our colonial master didn't leave us with anything, because they just saw a desert, they didn't have anything. So we looked at the natural resources, and 2 years after independence, we actually discovered the diamonds. And then we have a lot of wildlife. Botswana is home to the largest population of wildlife in the of elephants in the wild, in the whole world. We currently have, according to the recent survey, 131,000 elephants in one country. And we are in a sub-region that has a conservational treaty with Zambia, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and Angola because of the shared resource. And we manage that under that treaty, because now that involves us in an agreement on how we manage the core resource. But I was saying, we saw that wildlife, our forests, natural landscape was an economy that you could build our development on. So we started development policies and laws to preserve them. And there are people who have always existed around them, who have preserved them over the years using indigenous knowledge, and then also, harvesting and just utilizing them, but also being able to preserve them. So we made sure that our policies and our laws actually balanced between, ecological preservation and beneficiation of the people. We did that with diamonds as well, and we have one of the most successful diamond or mineral story, where we negotiate very well with the people in mind, and we used diamonds or our minerals. They are held by the state for the development of people. So these are diamonds for the revenues for people, and then equitable, distribution of, infrastructure, basic services. We still have free education in our country since independence, free health care, because of diamond revenue managed by the state. So that has been our mindset, managing for the people, preserving for the people. Every preservation policy, biodiversity conservation policy has the people at the core. So we have a program called the Community-Based Natural Resource Management Program. Over 4 decades has been availing access of the communities, to national parks. By the way, 40% of our land surface land is for conservation. National parks, game reserves, wildlife management areas, and so forth. So the people around are key players. They preserve, they protect, but they must benefit. So we allocate concessions to them. We help them to do wildlife trading. We have a hunting program. So they use the revenues to develop their agricultural practices, improve households or, housing, connect water, electricity, and so forth. So that has been our principle. Now, our story also banks a lot and actually is a showcase in terms of good governance, because of how we attend to people. So when we negotiate cooperation, either binational corporations, joint permanent commissions, any other south to south and international, we always make sure that anything we agree upon will not put people in jeopardy. So our communities are already well incentivized. They understand and value wildlife and natural resources around them. So they will rather ask that they are given more opportunity to participate rather than kill animals, destroy forests, and so forth because of the beneficiation. So, now in tourism, when we realize these resources are actually economic resources, the forest, the Chobe National Park, the iconic Okavango Delta, we blended conservation with tourism, because that was the product that we sold out, to our global tourists. You come there, you will enjoy the landscapes, enjoy the wildlife, and the cultures around that. So we're still saying this ministry must manage both, so that we are able to control building infrastructure around, these sensitive landscapes. There is a way we should build. There are materials that are not allowed. We have the Environmental Assessment Act, where we make sure that any development project in terms of infrastructure follow certain rules, and in sensitive areas there are things to do, things not to do, and then we monitor that. If we have a tourism lodge in the Okavango Delta. After some time, when we see that we've been doing activities, you must move the camp to another place and let that one regenerate. And working with communities helps us to actually get them involved in restoration of any kind of, degradation that happens. So we've always thrived. Tourism has been the second revenue earner of the country based on this natural resource. And the cultures around that have not been left behind. And then we have been expanding our tourism and activities to include culture, sports. Now we are already doing filming, and then we are bringing and elevating culture so that people can understand. You don't just see a wild, an animal, or enjoy a boat cruise or a game drive. There are people around, who are very, very key in this. So that's how the ecotourism policy, and model has been our model for a long time. We do eco certification. Your lodge, your hotel, your activities must be eco-friendly. So in terms of policy and laws and intentionality in ensuring that the communities are incentivized so we don't have conflict that's not managed, is because we have seen the value in putting the two together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll certainly be asking you a little bit more questions about the international collaboration behind the work that you do, and especially in the Okavango, because that's such a vast ecosystem and environment. Secretary Tavera, we've worked together for years now, and we are bringing the finals of X Prize Rainforest to Amazonas in July. And there's so much to talk about, but we're talking about entire countries. The state of Amazonas is one of the largest states or provinces in the world, which in and of itself is it's a big challenge. And I think under your work and your leadership, you've been working to innovate new ways forward to protect biodiversity, to work with communities, and to protect the Amazon. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey in facing those challenges of such a massive area, protecting one of the greatest biodiversity hotspots on the planet.
So thank you, Peter. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to the audience. So I prefer speaking in Portuguese. If there is any problem to do that? No, because most part of the audience Brazilian. So, bom, obrigado por estar aqui. I give some seconds to. Oh, okay. So obrigado pelo convite, Peter. Aproveitar para agradecer a participação e dizer o quanto nós estamos ansiosos para a final do X Prize acontecendo em Manaus ano que vem. De fato, Peter, talvez o maior desafio para o estado do Amazonas na defesa da biodiversidade seja o tamanho do nosso estado. Né? Nós estamos falando de um estado de 1,5 milhão de quilômetros quadrados, que são quase, por exemplo, 3 vezes o tamanho da Alemanha. E, nesse caso, todos os recursos, sejam financeiros, humanos, para lidar com o desafio da conservação da biodiversidade, não são suficientes para que a gente possa reverter o ciclo de perda da biodiversidade que nós estamos enfrentando. Não só no Amazonas, como na Amazônia como um todo. E, no nosso caso em específico, falar em inovação para o monitoramento da biodiversidade não é uma desculpa, né? É uma necessidade. Porque você poderia fazer um monitoramento usando pessoas, usando carros, motocicletas, e também usar, como foi mencionado, drones ou outro tipo de inovação. Só que eu não tenho escolha de escolher entre um e outro, né? A minha única escolha é apostar na inovação tecnológica para superar os desafios da geografia que o Estado tem, né? Só que para isso é necessário um nível de investimento capaz de dar conta desse monitoramento. E aí eu acredito que nós compartilhamos aqui muito dessas angústias, que é a característica das nossas regiões, é que nós somos regiões pobres ou em desenvolvimento. E os recursos para monitoramento da biodiversidade, né, os recursos para combate a desmatamento, eles concorrem nas nossas regiões com o mesmo recurso que vai para a saúde, que vai para a promoção da educação, né, que vai para a segurança pública. Então, o maior desafio hoje que nós temos no estado do Amazonas para avançar do ponto de vista de reverter a perda da biodiversidade é encontrar um mecanismo financeiro de médio e de longo prazo que possa permitir a estruturação dessas inovações tecnológicas no tamanho, na medida e na rapidez que nós precisamos para ampliar o monitoramento. Então, esse é o primeiro ponto que eu queria compartilhar a partir dos desafios. E o segundo é que essa solução tecnológica ela responde e resolve uma única parte do problema, que é o do monitoramento, da fiscalização e de superar a geografia. Mas ela não responde o ponto principal, que é quais são os motores, quais são os drivers que levam à perda da biodiversidade. Que o comando e controle, para nós que somos secretários, estamos como secretários de meio ambiente, o maior desafio é que quando o dinheiro do controle e do monitoramento acaba, né, toda aquela represa do ponto de vista desse drive do desmatamento e da perda de biodiversidade encontra um caminho livre, elas vêm como se fosse uma represa que se rompeu e aquela água inunda, né, tudo novamente e você volta aos padrões de desmatamento ou de perda da biodiversidade até maior do que antes, quando você implementou os sistemas de monitoramento. Então, o ponto principal do grande desafio é como integrar uma agenda econômica para regiões pobres ou em desenvolvimento que possam ser compatíveis com a conservação dos recursos naturais e a proteção da biodiversidade. Acho que desde a primeira Conferência do Clima, desde os Objetivos do Milênio, que depois se transformaram nos Objetivos do Desenvolvimento Sustentável, essa sempre foi a pergunta principal. Né? Mas de uma hora para outra, e eu consigo identificar aqui, em especial a partir da COP de Paris, a gente teve uma mudança do ponto de vista de que a proteção ambiental ela se daria apenas por compromissos do ponto de vista de redução de emissões. Enquanto que o ponto principal eram investimentos para que a gente mudasse os drivers e investisse em novas matrizes econômicas para que a gente pudesse trabalhar a partir da biodiversidade como um novo motor de uma nova economia, né? E também de combate à perda da biodiversidade. Então, já para encerrar essa primeira parte, eu acredito que para regiões pobres ou em desenvolvimento como as nossas, né, a inovação ela é fundamental para aprimorar e reduzir os custos do monitoramento, mas, por outro lado, a eficiência de longo prazo da ação de redução da perda da biodiversidade, ela só vai se dar quando nós tivermos a capacidade de desenvolver um modelo econômico que gere impacto econômico positivo para as pequenas comunidades, né, para as comunidades que são as principais responsáveis por guardarem essa biodiversidade e que possam fazer com que essas comunidades, a partir da proteção, melhorem a sua qualidade de vida. É impressionante porque eu acabei de sair aqui da Green Zone e as maiores tecnologias que são promovidas, né, que são divulgadas, elas são tecnologias que estão usando inteligência artificial, estão pensando em conexões 6G, né? São tecnologias que estão trabalhando com o metaverso, né? E a gente, na Amazônia, está pensando em inovações tecnológicas para as populações que estão acessíveis ao resto do mundo desde o século XVIII e que ainda não chegaram lá, que é o saneamento, que é a energia, né, que é o acesso à água, né, e o direito à geração de renda. Então, acho que sem colocar na pauta esses dois grandes desafios, né, nós teremos muitas dificuldades de reverter as causas principais que nos levam à perda atual da biodiversidade.
Muito obrigado. Certainly a big part of the competition that we're running is to incentivize these types of insights about just sustainable new bioeconomies and finding economic models to support this type of conservation moving into the future. And in that sense, in Rwanda, you have an extremely high level of biodiversity, of endemic species, also a high population, and also tech and innovation and sustainability hub that's really taking off in the middle of the continent. Minister, could you speak a little bit to how you all are innovating in this way and a little bit more on these types of collaborations that you feel are so important?
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Yes, we had to innovate and put up strategies to be able to protect our biodiversity. We have an increasing population. We have to create some incentives to our population. That's why 10% of our tourism revenues go to the people in building hospitals, building schools, creating non-farm activities. Even the fact that the population is involved in gorilla naming ceremonies. This is something that they take as their own, because it is cultural in Rwanda that a newborn baby is given a name. So that has made the nature and humanity, it has created that connection, that bond. We feel that gorillas are a part of us. By the way, we have 98% common DNA with gorillas. The science has shown. And the local communities are rarely actively participate in conservation. Rwanda is the only country on the continent that has no poachers. We don't have poachers because former poachers are now rangers and guides of the tourists. They are protecting the park because they know all the corners they use to use as a hunting site when they used to be poachers. And now they are employees of the parks. They earn revenues. Their children study free of cost. They have health insurance. So they can't throw stones on where they get bread for their children. Those are initiatives. That's why before even connecting our conservation strategy to international, we should start by community, then go international. Of course, the X Prize Rainforest Award program serves as a beacon of inspiration because you are showcasing how we can share technology, innovation, how we can have international partnerships, how all can drive transformation, change in conservation effort. That's why we acknowledge the role played by such initiatives, and we copy even from you how we award the community, how we award school kids, how we award students in the university who have conservation initiatives in their research. And of course, the successful outcomes are speaking volumes. if we are saying that gorillas are no longer endangered, it speaks volume. When we are talking about conservation and rehabilitation of wetlands, for example, the recently rehabilitated wetland in the city of Kigali have seen 250 species of bird coming back. They were about to disappear, and now they are back. Of course, those are success stories that we should share with all the world. The competition between university students on creating biodiversity conservation tools should be really something that everybody emulate, because those are the flag bearers of tomorrow in conservation. And we have to ensure that global cooperation, as we started with the Global Biodiversity Framework, move from talks to tangible actions, move from talk to product that our people will benefit from. And of course, for us to have a sustainable future with biodiversity, when we will feel part of the biodiversity and where humanity will live in harmony with biodiversity, with nature. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And I also want to point out one of your previous positions as Minister of Education, which of course is so intertwined with everything you just discussed, and it's also something that's passionate and core to the work of Alana Foundation, our sponsor in Brazil in terms of education and youth empowerment. And so all of these aspects are crucial. It's in terms of solutions for biodiversity, it comes down to people and especially the youth. Speaking of wetlands and returning to international collaboration, Mr. Kering, you mentioned the Okavango, and speaking of biodiversity hotspots and places that span national boundaries, could you talk a little bit about those forms of collaboration that are necessary for all of you in such an ecosystem that spans multiple countries?
Thank you very much. It's important to realize and notice and actually give attention to the fact that a lot of these ecosystems, they cover not just one country, they will be covering a whole region. The Okavango Delta, we have Namibia close to that, we have Angola. It's actually fed by the waters that flow from Angola. And if anything happens to those waters that you don't receive them inland, then the Okavango Delta will die. So cooperation between Botswana, Namibia, and Angola, called the OCACOM, deals with the issues around the water management and protection of the ecosystem. And because the Okavango Delta is a UNESCO listed landscape, UNESCO is also working with us on how we can better collaborate with these other countries to make sure that the preservation is balanced. Because any country, because of its sovereign power, they can enact any law, they can come up with any project, and they can want to do some things that might harm the whole ecosystem. So we collaborate on that. We also incorporate that as CASA, the Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area that I mentioned, the 5 countries, including Angola, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Botswana. What we are doing right now in this collaboration or this treaty is to help one another, to do projects that will benefit the community so that we are all moving together in this incentivization, initiative. So we're working on that, and we may always make sure that our treaty is up to date with the issues. We have meetings, we have got a ministerial segment meetings and so forth. But working with United Nations as well around the Okavango Delta, the FAO is helping us, in land restoration of degraded land around that, and also managing human-wildlife conflict. And I think it's important to mention that, because when we do this, we are able to rationalize and share resources. We are able to have memoranda of agreements and understandings as individual or pairs of countries that are aligned to the regional and also aligned to the SADC, the Southern African Development. So we start nationally with what we are doing, and then we link up with our neighbors and then grow nationally and regionally. We are also talking about the Miombo Forest forest, the Mopane, we have Maputo Declaration. That now brings together a lot of us going into the Congo Basin, because now we're talking about regional, stretches of forest that we must manage together. So we have got declarations as well, on top of joint permanent commissions, MOUs, and other SADC or sub-regional. So it's very important. The United Nations Development Program also helps us with community-based, projects, to augment what we do with our special funds, including the National Environmental Fund, Conservation Trust Fund, where we give resources, training, capacity building to our communities to be able to, help us, talk about that. But in terms of also doing collaboration, we have the University of Botswana, International University of Science and Technology, University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, that are also twinning with other universities globally to improve on research, improve on student exchanges, and they have got research agenda that they share. This is also something that is an opportunity for those who would like to collaborate with us on research, on innovation. We have the Botswana Digital Innovation Hub. They develop gadgets and apps and tools, online and software and stuff like that. And they are mainly young people that we incubate to bring out their talent, to monitor our natural resource, biodiversity, species, generate data, come up with information that will help to understand that this fruit is actually, it has medicinal properties, and then we can talk about economies around that. So the BDIH is another place that you might want to collaborate with. In terms of agriculture, we are improving on our seeds to be able to adapt the sector to climate change, impacts. We have been buying a lot of semen from the US to improve our local breeds, because beef production is of key importance to us. Fire management, we have been experiencing a lot of wildfires, the worst ever, and fire management needs investment and collaboration on technology, especially early warning systems. We just recently received some from China to monitor and to be able to help us detect, and we are experiencing drought, and drought monitoring, and then adaptive capacities and need all that. In terms of wildlife management, also we are collaborating with international universities and laboratories on managing wildlife species, and also providing alternative water supply, with borehole installation, to provide for them. So I think basically where we are, especially at this COP, talking about loss and damage adaptation fund, we're really looking forward to a structure that can help us access funding quickly, easily, and be able to be responsive to some of these emergencies that occur. And we are looking for partnerships in this area, and we need more of data generation. So universities collaboration, with government, we are pursuing that. With Yale University, we have an MOU already and stuff like that. So we're looking for more. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I can't help but mentioning that we just launched a separate prize focused on wildfires earlier this year that's tasking teams from around the world to do exactly that, to focus on more rapid detection from satellites and local sources and response. So that's another avenue that we can certainly talk about. But you spoke so much also to the ways in which climate are affecting these ecosystems that span multiple countries. And certainly drought and fire is something that is being experienced in environments that we've never seen before. Including in the middle of the Amazon. And so we were just in Brazil and Amazonas for most of August, and parts of Amazonas and communities that we were able to access by larger boats became difficult to access by even canoes in recent months because of the impacts of global climate change on the Amazon basin. And so, Eduardo, I'll ask you to touch a little bit on those global impacts and how it's affecting somewhere like the Amazon rainforest, but also in an international collaboration sense. When we first met, Amazonas was the chair of the Governor's Climate and Forest Task Force, which is a collaboration of subnational governments across, especially Latin America, parts of Africa, and Asia. And you were such a leader behind that. And so maybe speaking a little bit as well on the importance of those collaborations between states and provinces, as well as different countries.
Muito bom. Obrigado, Peter. Dá tempo para colocar os tradutores. Bom, Peter, são duas coisas. Eu queria só apontar um caminho que antes de responder a tua pergunta, que assim, o Estado do Amazonas ele tem apostado numa agenda para a conservação ambiental e a conservação da biodiversidade, que é apoiar as comunidades nessas necessidades primárias: água, energia, atividades econômicas compatíveis com a floresta em pé ou a floresta manejada. E o Amazonas lançou aqui na COP um programa chamado Amazonas 2030, que tem um compromisso de poder, ao mesmo tempo que reduz desmatamento, aumentar a qualidade de vida das comunidades. E o foco principal é trabalhar nessa agenda de curto prazo, que a gente entende que uma agenda de biodiversidade, de conservação da biodiversidade, ela só tem engajamento porque é uma agenda de médio e longo prazo, se as pessoas tiverem as suas necessidades básicas, prioritárias, atendidas. Então, essa vai ser a prioridade do governo do Estado, incluir nas compras públicas produções da sociobiodiversidade, né, incluir na merenda escolar a aquisição de produtos, né, da agricultura familiar, rural, da agricultura indígena. Ou seja, uma maneira que a gente tem de apoiar essas iniciativas para dar um espaço maior para que essas comunidades consigam pensar em longo prazo. Essa agenda de longo prazo ela tem que trazer resultados concretos de curto prazo. E aí eu aproveito para falar da agenda que é liderada pelo consórcio de governadores da Amazônia Legal, que é uma tentativa de fortalecer uma agenda ambiental, que ela seja uma agenda ambiental da Amazônia para a Amazônia. Eu acho que esse é o ponto fundamental de tudo que nós estamos discutindo aqui. Eu tive a oportunidade de estar em um outro painel, e talvez o maior desafio que nós tenhamos como região é entender que as demandas da agenda climática do norte desenvolvido, elas não necessariamente são as mesmas demandas da urgência climática do sul subdesenvolvido ou em desenvolvimento. Então, o consórcio da Amazônia Legal estabelece essas diretrizes para que os estados da Amazônia trabalhem naquilo que é prioridade. Acho que o primeiro ponto, que é o mais importante, é que há uma definição clara por todos os governadores, independente do partido político, da linha partidária, de que é necessário investir em programas de redução do desmatamento. Né? E isso é muito importante do ponto de vista de uma agenda para evitar mais perda da biodiversidade. O segundo ponto que tem sido trabalhado como consenso para os governadores é a promoção de uma agenda econômica compatível com o bioma Amazônia. Né? E como fazer com que a economia tradicional, seja gado, seja soja, ela possa dar respostas mais concretas de reduzir as suas emissões e ter um menor impacto ambiental possível, aumentando a produtividade em áreas já utilizadas para que não precise derrubar novas áreas para as novas produções. Esse é um fator extremamente importante dessa agenda dos governadores. Mas a mais importante agenda é a agenda política da região. E a COP, né, a Conferência das Partes, a conferência que a gente participa já há mais de 20 anos, eu tenho entendido que ela não tem conseguido dar as respostas necessárias para uma agenda tão urgente. E enquanto a gente não conseguir reverter a agenda climática para uma agenda das demandas, urgências e necessidades da agenda Sul-Sul, da agenda latino-americana, da agenda da Amazônia, a gente vai ficar mais 20 anos na COP, mais 20 anos vindo para Oriente Médio, Europa, né, e a gente não vai conseguir conexões e respostas para as urgências que nós estamos esperando. A cooperação internacional é importante, os recursos são importantes, mas a gente tem um desafio que nós precisamos fortalecer, que é a agenda, como eu falei, a agenda da biodiversidade, das prioridades do Sul global. Essa agenda ela é uma agenda que ela é, acima de tudo, econômica, ela é ambiental, mas ela é social. O estado do Amazonas tem 97% da cobertura natural conservada. O preço da conservação ambiental é que 55% da população está na linha ou abaixo da linha da pobreza. E na região amazônica, uma das características de áreas de alta biodiversidade é a pobreza. Deveria ser o contrário, né? Garantir o acesso à melhoria da qualidade de vida das pessoas que cuidam da biodiversidade deveria ser um ponto pacífico no entendimento da agenda pró-clima global. Então, por isso que para o consórcio da Amazônia Legal, a agenda política de você reverter o locus da discussão das prioridades para a agenda climática, ao invés de ser uma agenda climática que garanta, a partir da conservação do Sul em desenvolvimento, os padrões de vida do Norte desenvolvido, que em linhas gerais é o que se discute ao longo dos 20 anos que a gente participa da Conferência do Clima, a gente não tem como negar que a agenda climática virou uma agenda geopolítica, é garantir que a agenda climática ela traga garantias concretas, primeiro, para um novo modelo econômico, que desfaça as desigualdades globais que nos levam a sofrer as consequências das mudanças climáticas, como as graves crises da seca e da cheia que a Amazônia ela tem colocado. E segundo, que é a questão da liderança. A liderança da agenda tem que ser daqueles que sofrem os maiores impactos e as maiores urgências. Enquanto a liderança da agenda climática global não for do Sul em desenvolvimento, ficaremos mais 20, 30 anos, o tempo vai passar, as urgências climáticas se aprofundarão e seremos os primeiros a sofrer consequências irreversíveis, como já estamos sofrendo, em relação aos impactos dessas mudanças climáticas, em especial da perda da biodiversidade.
Muito obrigado, Eduardo. This is a phenomenal panel that I think we could continue for the entire day. I want to take the opportunity to invite one of our advisory board members to provide some closing remarks and to tie this conversation together. We have the distinct honor and privilege of having Hindu Umur Ibrahim as a member of our advisory board on XPRIZE Rainforest, and as indigenous peoples and local communities are the original stewards and guardians of more than 80% of the biodiversity in the planet. It's crucial, and it has been throughout this entire program and throughout all that we do, to partner properly, to work ethically, and to support indigenous peoples and local communities throughout this process. And a year ago, under Hindu's leadership, distinct guidelines and principles were released at COP27 about how organizations, companies, governments can engage properly. And so I want to give the floor to Hindu to provide some closing remarks, and appreciate all of your support.
Thank you very much, Peter, and hi everyone. I'm really very excited to see the high-level discussion actually from the government level to what we are calling for so long. Thank you, Peter, for your leadership in XPRIZE. That really make a chance, because we are always saying we wanted to have action, and we did get an action. We wanted to have technology. We do have the technology. We wanted to have community and knowledge. We do have community and knowledge. And you help it to connect all those. And you help it also to connect the Africa, Asia, Latin America, even the Asia are not there. XPRIZE is working on all those countries. So what's important is how we can channel a direct access finance to the communities who are the guardian of those forests, who can protect what Madam Minister said, the gorilla and all the species who are really in danger. Because those species matter in the ecosystem, so they matter in each action that we are taking in the world. as indigenous peoples, we say we need to keep the balance. They are part of the balance. If one of them is missing, the balance of the planet and of the ecosystem will be losing, and we experience very fast climate and biodiversity loss. So to protect all those species, to give the chance to the indigenous communities to do what they are doing better as the guardian of the ecosystem, is a direct access finance. So as indigenous peoples, we worked over all the last year, and we did develop 10 principles and guidelines for direct access finance. What is the meaning? How you can work? How you can give the direct access? To give you a joke, when I met Macron last week, then I said like, hey, where is the direct access finance? So then people say like, oh, do you want us like transfer the money directly in your bank account? I'm like, yes, why not? But it's not about that. It is how you can fund what indigenous peoples want, how they can design the program that they want, how the reporting back will come from the community. Doesn't matter they went to school or not. To do not make them your system feeling like thousands of pages that are not like very useful for the community, but how they can know how to plant the trees and how much that they want. So how this direct access finance can compile. We did this principle and guideline, and I'm happy that my organization, our organization, I can say it's a prize, also compiling with this direct access finance from the indigenous peoples. So all the ministers and representatives of government here, if you can also support the direct access finance principles, that can help us to reach the NDC and NBSAP. That will help us to protect biodiversity and climate, both together to accelerate the action that we want. Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you all of you.
Thank you, Hindu. I don't have anything to say to follow up on any of the remarks here. I just want to say thank you to... I do have something to say. So a couple months ago, Eduardo and I were in Amazonas, and after many long conversations, he said to me, Peter, it's simple, but it isn't easy. And I think that in such a few words, it summed up the work that everybody here works so hard to persevere, because it is simple, but it isn't easy. And so thank you to each and every one of you for your dedication and hard work, and thank you, Hindu, as well. Thanks, everybody.